All right, so let's take a look at our last two problems. So for number 16, it says find the solutions to the equation between 0 and 2 pi for 2 tan squared is equal to 2. All right, so first off, I want to get tangent by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and that gives me tangent squared is equal to 1. So now I need to get rid of our square. So inverse of squaring something is taking the square root. So let's insert a square root on both sides. Don't forget to include your plus or minus. And so that's going to give us tangent is equal to a positive or a negative 1. So if we go look at our circle, then we can see that, remember that I told you for your exam, I added the tangent values to your circle for you. So square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2 is 1. So it's going to be at these multiples of pi over 4. So this one would be positive 1. This would be negative 1. This would be positive 1. And this would be negative 1. So it's going to be at all those multiples of pi over 4. So 1 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, and 7 pi over 4. And so you'll notice it told us to give answers between 0 and 2 pi. So it was looking for those radian answers instead of degrees. All right, then the last one, number 17, we've got cotangent is equal to negative 5/3 and sine is greater than 0. So first thing we need to figure out is what quadrant are we in? All right, so cotangent and tangent are reciprocals of each other and have the same sign. So we know that tangent and cotangent would both be negative here. And then it told me that sine was greater than 0. So I know that that means sine and its reciprocal, cosecant, would be positive here. So remember your four quadrants are all students take calculus. So we are looking for where sine is positive and tangent is negative, and that's going to be right here in the second quadrant. Okay, so I know I'm in the second quadrant. Now I want to know what is the value of secant. All right, so if cotangent was negative 5 over 3, and I know I'm in the second quadrant, I'm going to come build a triangle. So cotangent is adjacent over opposite. So that means that the adjacent is going to be 5 and the opposite's going to be 3. Since I'm in the second quadrant, I know x is negative and y is positive. So I know to put the negative with the 5 instead of with the 3. And then I can do Pythagorean theorem to get the other side. Now be careful, this is not a 3, 4, 5 triangle. So remember that the 5 has to be the hypotenuse. It has to be the longest side. So you couldn't have a 4 over here on the hypotenuse. All right, so let's do Pythagorean theorem. So we're going to say negative 5 squared plus 3 squared is equal to our hypotenuse squared. So that's going to give us, remember, you got to square that negative. It's the whole thing that's being squared. So 25 plus 9 is equal to c squared, or 34 equals c squared. So let's take the square root of both sides, and we'll get c is square root of 34. Now, the hypotenuse or the radius is always positive, so I don't have to worry about whether, when we take the square root, whether it's the plus or minus. All right, so now we can answer the question that was actually asked, what is the secant? All right, so remember by definition, and you can see it on your formula sheet, that secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. So I can come over here and see hypotenuse is square root of 34 and adjacent is negative 5. Now, always a good idea to spot check at the end here that I'm in the second quadrant, and in the second quadrant, that cosine and its reciprocal secant should both be negative, because remember, all students, only sine and its reciprocal are positive there. So just a good way for me to spot check that it is negative square root of 34 over 5 instead of positive.